without further ado, Ryan, go ahead and introduce yourself, bud. And everybody else, would you please mute your mic so we don't get any feedback and let you ask a question?
So my name is Ryan Pennington. I am a firefighter, paramedic now, training officer with the Charleston, West Virginia Fire Department in the capital city of Charleston, West Virginia. I don't know if you guys can see my ugly mug yet or not. So this is me. I've been in the fire service for 20-some years, serving in volunteer combination, and now a fully staffed, fully career fire department. Our fire department's about 165 members. We run out of 8 houses, 8 engines, 2 trucks, 2 rescues, 4 ALS ambulances, BC, and a medic supervisor. We run about 22,000 runs a year. I think we had 360 to 400 working structural fires last year. So to say that I work in the ghettos is probably an understatement. We had 2 last week. So it's a great place to do it. And this class has been my heart and soul. It's been something that I've been working on for a long time. And I've actually written a book somewhere here in my hoarded office. I actually written a book on the topic, and I've got a DVD that's available through Amazon. So the first question is Ryan, why did you become the hoarder guy? Well, if I was going to make a name for myself in the fire service, the hoarder guy would not be it. It's pretty sad when Paul Combs even sends you a picture with your name on it. So this is my Paul Combs hoarding cartoon. It's number 1 of 500 he sent to me. He actually sent through my class, and this is the note he took from setting through my class in Ohio. So that was pretty cool. But just like most things in the fire service, I became the hoarding guy because we almost killed 4 firefighters. And I'm going to go ahead and flip my screen over here. So can you guys see my screen okay? All right, so this is a cheesy picture with me with my European fire helmet on, and I'll explain what this picture is here just in a few minutes. But this is the house that almost killed 4 Charleston firefighters. A lot of people, when I tell them about the hoarding fires or a heavy content environment, they'll come back and say, well, Ryan, we just won't go in them. Yeah, well, that's a solid choice a lot of times. But sometimes we don't have a choice. And this was particular fire, we didn't really have a choice. So it happened about 8 o'clock in the evening. It was a structure fire with confirmed victims trapped. The victim was in the upstairs bedroom, mobility limited. He was in a wheelchair. And on a clutter scale of 1 to 5, this was only about a 2 or 3. So he was on the telephone with the dispatcher saying, hey, I'm burning to death. So our typical response is 3 engines plus a RIT engine, a ladder truck, and at the time we had the 2 rescues, we had 2 ambulances. So our on-scene staffing was about 22 in the first 5 minutes. So we had 22 people within the first 5 minutes, and it took us 31 minutes to extricate the victim. 1 firefighter threw the floor into the basement because it was a basement fire as an extended burn time. And then we sent 3 other firefighters, 1 for smoke inhalation and 2 ran out of air inside performing the search for the occupant. This picture is kind of misleading because you really don't get the full scope of how much this house really stood out in the neighborhood, because this was a very expensive side of town. The Canal River is right on the other side of it. So this is a pretty high-end district of our response district. So if you guys can tell, what really stands out about these pictures of this house here? You guys can unmute your microphones, and I'd like to hear what your observations have been.
The overgrowth of all the plants.
Yes. Yep. So this was the overgrown. If you can look in this first picture, you can see there's some clutter in the old car. So more than anything, what we wanted to show is the lack of maintenance. And it really stood out if I would open this picture up and show you the $1 million houses on each side of this house. This one really stood out like a sore thumb. Well, that got the wheels spinning. Hey, how did this happen? Why did it happen? Was there something we could do to keep this from happening? So I went to the Google Jedi and I typed it in, fighting fires and hoarder houses. I found nothing. I went back and typed in Collier's mansion conditions, nothing. So that kind of led to the research of me asking out and searching around and looking for answers. And the problem was there wasn't none. So every time I'd call somebody, they'd be like, Ryan, you're wasting your time. We've known about this stuff since the 1940s. We've been dealing with Collier's mansion conditions since the 40s. Well, we have. But the problem is the number of people afflicted or affected by hoarding is growing. So looking into the research part of that, is they think the cases are growing. They know the cases are growing, and they attribute that to a couple different things. The baby boomers are getting older, and it affects the elderly more than the young. A couple different things about hoarding is it affects all races, all ages, all demographics. You won't find it. You won't only find it in the ghettos of Charleston, West Virginia. You're going to find them in the nice areas of Mesa, Arizona. They don't stop at the Charleston, at the North American borders. They're not going to stop at the Canadian borders. So starting this research, I've done 44 case studies. And we've spoken to the London Fire Brigade, the Melbourne, Australia Fire Department, the Peruvians, the Ecuadorians, and we're seeing these numbers of cases growing exponentially, especially like the retirement communities. When you have the older people, you're going to start seeing these places. One of the biggest things that I teach and that I kind of preach more than teach is these things. We shouldn't roll up on the front of one of these houses and they go, boom, I'm a hoarder house. I mean, this is something that takes years and years and years and years to collect. And a lot of times we drive around with our blinders on, or we're texting in the back end. Hopefully the driver's not doing it, but we're texting on our cell phones as we drive around in our district. We need to identify these places right now. I'll bet you 3 paychecks that you guys have one within 3 miles of your fire station. I will bet you 3 paychecks that you guys have at least one, if not 4, 5, 6, or 7. And there's some subtle cues and clues that you can find with these types of occupancies. And let's take a look at it here real quick. So we always start off with defining hoarding. What is hoarding? Well, the clinical diagnosis is it's the accumulation of and failure to discard a large amount of belongings that have no apparent value. These folks can collect any and everything. There is no rhyme or reason to anything they collect. We've seen animal hoarders. We've seen DVD hoarders is a big one. Like, these folks have never heard of Netflix before. So, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. I was in a class 2 weeks ago. The guy was hoarding Chevy big block engines. And I was like, wow, you want to talk about a load on a structure. I don't know how much a big block Chevy weighs, but he had like 20 of them inside his house. So each individual case is going to be different, and that needs to come into your assessment. I throw a little video up here. I don't have really time to show you, but a lot of people ask me, there's a television show about hoarding, right, Ryan? Yep, there is. Johnny and Roy was dealing with it back in the 1970s. And this is a little kind of spoof on Johnny and Roy. This is a commercial hoarding environment here. So this is what we call a heavy content environment. And a lot of folks in the northeastern parts of the United States use the term Collier's Mansion. Well, if you get out of the northeastern United States, a lot of folks don't understand what you're talking about when you use this terminology. Well, the terminology was based on the Collier's brother at 128th Street in Manhattan. And this is inside the Collier's Mansion. They were third-generation hoarders. So they were second and third generation hoarding. They had been collecting stuff in their brownstone in Manhattan for 3 generations. So you can imagine 3 generations of compulsively collecting material. The thing about the Collier's Mansions, or the Collier brothers, is they were both very well educated. One of them was a lawyer. The other of them was an attorney. So they fought the law, and the Collier's brothers won. They tried evicting them because it's a multi-family residence. They couldn't evict them. They cut off their utilities. They peed and pooped in buckets and dumped it out the back. They cut off their electricity. They put a Model T Ford in the basement, tried to use it as a generator, in vain, of course. But over time, Homer and Langley wouldn't be seen very often, so they went looking for them inside the Collier's Mansion. And they found that one of them had died of natural causes. He was a brittle diabetic, and the other was killed by the booby traps that he created. So Langley was actually killed by the booby traps inside the Collier's Mansion. In the process of tearing down the Collier's Mansion, they found 20,000 books and removed 136 tons of debris. And what you see on your screen there to the right is the front door. So I would ask you, if you do your on-scene assessment and you go to force a front door and you find this, what's your next move? Well, a lot of firefighters would start digging. And the reality of it is you're not getting through that. In the process of tearing down the Collier's Mansion, Langley was killed by a booby trap that he created. But they found a human skeleton that was not the boys. And now, I love firefighters, and I love talking to them. My guys back home are like, yeah, Ryan, that was probably Mama. We put Mama down by the piano. They found 8 grand pianos, by the way. And the guys out in Missouri said, Ryan, no, that's the code enforcement official. He just didn't make it home that day. So what I ask folks is if I got on the radio right now, and I don't know what Mesa's dispatch center is called, but dispatch from Mesa Engine 1 arriving on a scene of a 2-story Adobe-style house out in Arizona. Get a little Adobe stuff there. And we've got a 2-story Adobe-style house with a working fire. We'll be using an offensive strategy. We've got Collier's Mansion conditions. If I said that in Mesa, Arizona, what would your guys start doing? If it was me back before I did all this, I would be looking for Shaggy and Scooby in the mystery wagon. We're going through the mansion. Wow! The fact of the matter is a lot of people don't really understand the term. I'm almost halfway through Norman's tactics, and it's not even been mentioned. So, with the help of my good friend Dr. Gassaway, we developed a terminology that's, number one, it's politically correct. Number two, it makes you think of an overloaded structure. It also makes you think of the heavy workload that you're going to experience. Because the number one killer firefighter we all know is cheeseburgers. We all love cheeseburgers. So we're going to be in an overworked environment, a high stressful environment. You're going to strains, pulls, backs. The Passaic, New Jersey Fire Department had a captain have to get retired because he took a window and didn't realize that he was 4 feet on top of the stuff, fell out of the second-story window. So John Haywick actually has a retired firefighter from a Collier's Mansion. So the reason why we went with a different terminology is we wanted something politically correct, and that way it's universally identifiable. So Dr. G and I came up with the terminology of heavy content. So now if you get on the radio and you say this is Mesa Engine 1, we're on a scene of a 2-story wood frame single-family dwelling with a working fire. We'll be using an offensive strategy. We have a heavy content condition. Hopefully, if no one's set through the class before, they could kind of start going in their head. What's heavy about this? Is it a heavy workload? And we need to start thinking about contents under collapse potential, because a lot of stuff can be very heavy. And I'll show you an example of one like that. So hopefully, I'm working on getting into the textbooks. I've been talking to IFSTA, and I've been talking to a couple other people about getting this terminology out there. And some of the guys come back, well, you're trying to change the FDNY, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not changing anybody. What I'm doing is standardizing something that we're trying to just standardize terminology. FDNY, they can keep using whatever they want to. The difference is they teach their guys what Collier's conditions is. We don't teach people what. I mean, people might know what hoarding is, but the thing about it is we don't want to announce. Have you ever seen a 90-pound ticked off cat lady? They are not happy people. So can you imagine? Yeah, Chief, this is Snot-Nosed Proby 1. We're experiencing high hoarding condition. This place is full of trash. Well, that lady doesn't see trash. They see very valuable materials in there. So, I mean, we want to de-escalate the situation as much as possible. And that's why we went with heavy content. It's a heavy content environment. The DC firefighters call them pack rat conditions. The London Fire Brigade calls them lasagna houses. The Midwest calls them trash houses. I'm like, no, they're just a heavy content condition. And what the side effect of this was, unbeknownst to us, is what about a dollar store on stock night at Christmas time? That is a freaking heavy content condition. Is it a quote unquote hoarding condition? Of course not. Well, I mean, it might be, but it's a heavy content condition. And one of the biggest misnomers about hoarding or heavy content is like, man, this is Chief Linguini, man. We had all this fuel. This could have been a huge conflagration and all this fuel to burn and all this fuel to burn, all this fuel to burn. In reality, that's missing one key element. Take a look at this picture. I think that was a big fire. Nope. That was a very small fire. Was there potential fuel for it? Abso-freaking-lutely. What do you guys see in that picture? Does anybody notice there's a snowblower in there? I'm sure the Mesa, Arizona folks don't know what a snowblower is because I had no freaking clue what it was. I was in Nova Scotia, Canada. They're like, dude, that's a good-looking Honda snowblower. Of course, my question was, what the freak's a snowblower? But the cues and clues to this stuff is that wasn't a big fire, and that's the seat of the fire. And in comparison, you got to think of it, what burns first on a campfire? Is it the little tiny twigs or is it a big, thick log? This is a big, thick log. I mean, it's a huge, thick log. And in my longer classes, I always ask them, how are you going to treat this fire? Well, I'm going to get out my 10-inch rotary saw, and I'm going to cut me a big old hole in it. Yeah, that's fine, but you just opened up a 20-by-8 flow path, air track, whatever. Why about putting like a 2-foot hole in it and adding some water to it first? And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, because that is the one biggest variable we found in all the research is controlling the airflow or air currents, air track, flow path, whatever you want to call it. Not all of them are obvious like this one. So this is the worst one I've ever seen. This is by far the worst hoarding fire I have ever seen. It was 5 acres of hoarding. Now, I'd call it a junkyard, but this guy called it home. So this is in Middle State, Pennsylvania. The fire chief was FaceTiming me while it was happening. He's like, Ryan, you've got to see this. And I'm like, Chief, don't you need to go fight the fire? He said, Ryan, we're going to be here for another day or so. It don't matter. The one common variable that you're going to find is look at all the blue tarps. Now, I didn't really realize this until I was teaching. Back in Missouri the next year, those guys were like, Ryan, do you realize that every picture or video you have of the exterior of a house has a blue tarp on it? So if you're twittering out Twitters right now, you got to use the hashtag blue tarp. And I make fun of that all the time. And by the way, he was hoarding fireworks. Here in a minute, the videos will turn sideways. I didn't get a chance to get it rotated properly. But he had like 300 pounds of gunpowder and something else in there. I don't know. It was ridiculous. They ended up putting 2 tower ladders in service, and the 2 tower ladders were working off of a draft from a pond. And they drained the pond. They flowed so much water. But you'll see the explosion. It's pretty impressive. The simple fact of the matter is not all the hoarding fires are always like this. This is a simple one. I mean, this is a defensive operation. No big deal. Put the tower ladders up, let it go. Like I said earlier, there's also some places that look like this. This was a heavy content fire, Detroit, Michigan. Lloyd Mitchell, the photographer that gave me some photographs for my book, actually explained that they had to breach walls. They tried to make a push through the Charlie side, ran into the stockroom. The stockroom was so overcrowded that that's where they encountered the heavy contents. We had a Dollar General store in our mutual aid company, and I went down there, and I tell you, if they would not have pulled 2 2.5s and start shutting doors, it would have been bad. And the chief had enough sense about him to shut the front doors and cut off the flow of air and to go with 2 2.5s in the back. And they really, really, really put a fantastic stop on this fire. Not these guys. These guys are pretty much done. But I know you guys don't have audio right here, but I always tell the story of Gene Kirchner. Gene was a volunteer firefighter for the Reisterstown Volunteer Fire Company in Maryland. Gene responded to this house, number 19 Hanover Road. So this is the side A of the house where Gene Kirchner lost his life. Gene was a good-looking, scrapping young 24-year-old firefighter, has a twin brother. This was a confirmed entrapment call. They had 3 victims inside this house when Gene got the call. And if you want to walk around the house at number 19 Hanover Road, this is what you found. And, of course, if you guys would notice, you were like, hey, why is this thing covered in trees for? Well, if you step behind the trees, what do you guys see here? You can unmute your microphones. I'd love to hear some observations about this picture. And remember, this came in with 3 entrapments.
Cluttered up porch, boarded up windows.
Yeah, and somebody asked me, Dave, that's a great observation. They asked me, Ryan, was that boarded before or after the fire? My comment is there's no smoke staining around it. So I'm going to say before the fire. Agree? Anybody else? Jeremiah, what do you see there, bud?
Scaffolding. So
Yep.
I don't know if they're working on it inside or outside or.
Yep.
I mean, that porch is all cluttered up, so I'm sure that's just.
And those aren't Christmas lights. Those are Halloween lights. They're Valentine's lights.
I assumed. I was going to ask when those.
Yeah, right. The thing about it is at this point in time, we need to start setting some red flags off. We pull up on this, and I tell the guys back home, listen, if you see someone trying to conceal their house like this, you better start thinking of 3 things. Number 1, a marijuana grow facility. Number 2, a methamphetamine lab. And number 3, a heavy content. If we can get all 3 in the same house, we're going to have one heck of an overhaul. Yeehaw! Chief canceled the drug test. We're taking our SCBAs off. The thing about it is this needs to be some cues and clues. Hey, Ryan, something's not right here. Let me put, like the Spider-Man says, his spidey sense. Your spidey sense better be alerting. And if I show you side C of the building, you ought to be able to tell it forever. And of course, if you're sitting in my class, you're like, hey, Ryan, we got a confirmation of blue tarps. Blue tarps, blue tarps. So, and the thing about it is the reason why there's blue tarps in the yard is because the house is full and they're trying to protect their belongings. But if you notice to the top left, the house is cluttered. To the top right, the house is cluttered, and the vehicles, the ones that are supposed to be running, are cluttered as well. But the problem is just like I spoke about earlier, is these houses shouldn't walk up to you and say, hey, boo, I'm a hoarder house. Because look at number 19 Hanover Road from almost a year and a half before the fire happened. compare it to the properties around it. There's no comparison. You can see the overgrown trees. You can see the clutter in the backyard. If you compare that to the neighborhood, it stands out like a sore thumb. This is why we need to get on Google Earth and zoom in on our districts and start identifying these places right now. These places should not surprise you when you go there. I mean, the thing about it is people say, well, Ryan, sometimes you can't tell when heavy content is present. Well, sometimes you can. The thing about number 19 Hanover Road is they've got building codes. Building code says if the contents extend beyond the front porch, you have to clean it up. Guess what building codes say about the back porch area? Ladder stack, boys. There's no building codes for the back of houses. Some people do, some people don't. So we always try to talk about Gene Kirchner and how he died. They actually saved 2 people this day. So Gene was found without a hose line, without his face piece on, and he was basically killed in a flow path. So they left the door open behind him here in the middle of your screen where the orange sticker is, and somebody opened up a flow path. Basically, this is another flow path fatality. So God bless you, Gene, and your family. So we start back to size up. So this is a picture of the Hoarder house. So that house that you're looking at there is a house that we burned on purpose. That has 60,000 cubic feet of material in it. And they said in 2014, Joe Starnes came up and asked me, he said, Ryan, I had no clue who he was. He's like, my name is Joe Starnes. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're like older than dirt. But he said, Ryan, how would you like to burn a hoarding house? And I was like, yes, sir. Who are you, by the way? So this is the house that we did, and Joe is fantastic. He is just like a savant of fire service. So, Joe, if you're listening, man, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for everything you've done. But he gave me the opportunity to show you the research, and this is during the burn down phase. So there's 60,000 cubic feet of materials in there. Size up. So I'll throw these slides up and let you guys can unmute your mics and start kind of talking your way through these pictures. This is Elyria, Ohio. Elyria, Ohio. This was a fatal heavy content fire. What stands out about this particular picture, guys? Go ahead, Dave. What are you seeing there?
See stuff piled up in the second floor. Looks like on the top right.
Yep. They had to cut down trees to get in those windows, by the way. What do you see, Jeremiah? Is there anybody else in here? I don't know. I think how many people else we got in there?
I was just going to comment on all the trees everywhere.
Trees everywhere. Yep. Can you see that vehicle over there? Tim, you see that vehicle? Can you see inside that brown van there? It's full of stuff as well. So these are all cues and clues of the heavy content environment. And the biggest lesson we learned about the Elyria, Ohio case is that Elyria, Ohio, the building inspectors had been in this house like 10 times and didn't tell the on-scene companies that she could not live in the second floor because it was so much stuff. So she was found in the kitchen and bath. She was found in the kitchen. A lot of people ask me, say, Ryan, how does the living occupancy change when heavy content starts to take over their house? Well, just like the Elyria, Ohio case is a lot of times the last 2 places or the last 2 rooms to become full is kitchens and bathrooms. Now, keep in mind that this is it's going to have to be on a case-by-case basis. So if you start collecting your clutter, there's no real rhyme or reason that everybody collects it this way. But if you think about it, if you were going to store something in your house right now, where's the first 2 places you'd fill up? It would be the attic and basement. Usually those are the first 2 places to become full of stuff. But if you think about being a firefighter, where's the last 2 places that you want to fill? Kitchens and bathrooms. Why? Because I like eating because I'm fat, and I can't eat unless I got rid of the stuff I had last time. So keep that in mind. At 2 o'clock in the morning, you identify a heavy content condition that you want to maybe put into your search plan. Hey, guys, can you hit your microphone there, 205? So you want to put in your search plan and think about thanks, guys. So you want to think about looking in your search plan, thinking about open spaces, defining pathways, and kitchens and bathrooms. A lot of times it's not permanently always that way. It's just that commonly. So out of the 40-some case studies I found, those were the most least empty or most available space. So if they are alerted to a fire and they're able to, that's going to be a room of refuge for them. So just keep in mind that kitchens and bathrooms are usually the places that they're headed. All right, let me turn my screen back on. So this is some examples of just some quick size up here, guys. Just let me know if you guys can see. So these are some houses. These are some houses that you can find. If you notice, this is inside a municipal district, and the front yard's fairly clean. But if you walk around the house, you can notice, well, number one, you got blue tarps everywhere. There's privacy fences in front of the privacy fences. So if you identify this on a normal drive-by, what you want to do is encourage you head on over to Google Earth. And here's the Google Earth image of that property. The sad part about it is this Google Earth image is from 2014. It's almost double the amount that it is right now. So you can actually sit and watch people's collections grow as you go along. So when we started doing the research, when Joe came to me, he said, "Right, give me some hypothesis. What do you want to prove in burning this?" Number one, he said, this is the most dangerous burn we've ever done. Who would you feel comfortable with sending down the hallway? And of course, my answer was my captain. His name's Davey Wagner. I call him the God of Fire. So I brought him down with me. So my hypothesis for this burn that you're getting ready to watch was that if you don't give it any air, the fire don't go anywhere. It's going to consume the available air or oxygen, and then it's going to go into the smoldering phase. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run here. So what you're seeing is Kill the Flashover burn 7-1. The bottom right quadrant is a thermal imaging view of the room of origin. The top left is a thermal imaging camera set on side Charlie out the front door. And the top right is an optical from Charlie to Alpha. So keep in mind, when I'm going to show you this, we had complete control of the air tract. All the windows were closed. All the doors were closed. All the interior doors were closed. But keep an eye on that bottom right-hand corner there. Now, keep in mind also that we're burning normal fuels. There was 2 sofas, 6 mattresses, 6 synthetic Christmas trees. We even decorated the parsley around the top. There's like 2,000 VHS tapes. But you'll watch the thermal imaging camera flip here in a minute from the, oh, it's already flipped. So we're at the 1200 scale. So you can see the top left, the superheated gases are starting. You can see a good neutral plane develop. The neutral plane starting to increase or decline towards the floor. And here pretty soon we're going to go into a complete blacked out situation. I found real quick during the research the 2 things that firefighters are scared of is diets and their wives. Just kidding. It's the heat and the dark. Firefighters like to be able to see, and they don't like being hot. The thing about this is watch what happens to the heat, particularly in the top left. So the top left will be the hallway that you're getting ready to crawl down. That spot temperature you're seeing at the bottom right of the top left quadrant at 176 degrees is set at 48 inches from the floor. But what's happening to the temperature? Somebody unmute your mic and tell me what your observations are showing there. Who can we pick on? I can't see everybody. Where's my Berkeley guys at? All right, Dave, I'm picking on you, buddy. You got the coolest mustache so far, so we got to pick on you. What do you think about the fire there?
Looks like it's going vent limited.
It is going vent limited. But now the problem is a lot of people are going to come back into me and say, well, Ryan, you just created flashover conditions. Would you agree or disagree?
If you introduce air, I mean, there's going to be a buildup and then potentially flashover, but now you get that massive amount of fuel you were talking about.
You're exactly right, Dave. Man, you're a smart guy. Got a cool mustache and a good brain. I like you already, my friend. Then the problem is flashovers usually don't occur at 159 degrees. So imagine us sitting behind this computer screen with 28 firefighters chomping at the bit, ready to go inside this house. And my first impression was, Joe, there's no fire. I've got 28 guys ready to go inside this house. When he's like, well, Ryan, what would you do? Well, if I want these guys to fight the fire. He's like, what would you do to make the fire happen? Well, my first answer is I'd open the front door. Well, it didn't go boom. It didn't go flash. And I'll show you that here just in a little bit. But if you identify those contributing factors or those potential for a heavy content environment, not only should you be doing this for potential for heavy content, every structure fire you go to deserves what's called a tactical 360. And this is something I learned from my good buddy Andy Starnes from the Charlotte Fire Department. And this is using your thermal imaging camera in a cool environment to identify a few things. What you're looking for is hot. What you're looking for is cold. What you're looking for is pathways, in particular in heavy content. But we're also looking for air tracks, flow paths. We're looking for victims. We're looking for possible points of entry and exit. And look how much more detailed of a view it gives you in comparison to the top left. So the top left is optical, and the bottom right is thermal. This is something new. that I brought home with me from Kill the Flashover, that we preach to our officers. You take that thermal imaging camera with you and you get a good thermal scan of it. Well, sometimes during class, I always ask people, and I'm going to put my ugly mug up here real quick. All right, I got to pick on somebody. Dave, I won't pick on you anymore. All right, Rob, what is the temperature of the hallway that you crawled? Look here, you crawled down last time. How hot was it?
Boy, that's a tough call.
No, it's not. No. In Celsius or Fahrenheit, I don't care. Either in C or F. I want specific numbers.
Man, I would say
no guess.
100 degrees most.
No 100.
Because our TI, and I gotta talk with Chris a little about some TI and get better TI than what we've got. It doesn't show color; it's black and white, and yeah, man, it just wasn't a good tool. Now, by feel, I was comfortable with going down that hall.
Right.
And as far as having that change in conditions, extreme change, it wasn't going to happen with us in terms of where we're at, where we knew the seat of the fire was, and where we were coming from, and managing that airflow.
Rob, you're another smart one now.
Yeah, that's my
thermal imaging. Thank you, Rob.
That's my answer, dude.
It's so funny that most of the people that I ask Rob like that will say, well, my ears weren't burning or my borks weren't melting or something's not going bad. And the thing about it is that's just not an acceptable answer. And that's something I learned from Andy Starnes and Kill the Flashovers. They choose 500 degrees at 48 inches as a no-go. And I'm actually teaching my guys to go even a little bit lower. 400 degrees at 48 inches is a no-go. Does that mean that I'm not going inside, that I'm going to be a big wimpy firefighter and I'm going to lose my leather helmet and they're going to make me shave my mustache? No, that just means we're going to find another way in. We're going to flow this miraculous new invention called water, or we're going to shut down the air track from it for somewhere. That means we're going to condition it. We're going to soften the target. If you guys listen to Bobby Halton's speech, he said a lot of times before they invaded Iraq, what they do, they pound them with the air attack for 2 months. They soften the target, and that's what we're talking about here. So I encourage everyone to start a tactical tick or a tactical thermal imaging view of it. So this is a tactical tick of when we open the door to the front door. And I was expecting a big boom. I was still under the impression that it was going to flash over real big and we were going to burn somebody. And the real sense of the matter was it didn't. And what happened was it was a slow burn. And I'll show you more of that here in a minute. So I always want to keep you in mind before you go into the cases that you do have something like this, there is collapse risk. We did have one that did get so hot that it did flash over. Thank goodness it flashed over because it shoved the firefighters right out the front door. And this is the collapse that happened shortly thereafter. So am I saying that it will never flash over? Absolutely not. I'm just saying for the fact of the matter of our research burn, it did not flash over because it was too cold.
Hey, real quick for clarification, that 400 degrees, if we have a basement fire, that's going to be a different read at that front door, correct?
It is. It all depends on how much gases you have accumulating.
Okay. So
if you want to shoot down that hallway, if you want to shoot down that chimney that you're getting ready to crawl down, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm getting soft in my old age. I don't know if it's getting soft so much as getting wise, but I'm not so sure I'm crawling down that basement stairwell much anymore. And we can have this discussion for another day, another time. When Chris had Lars on here and I asked him specifically, and that it was a loaded question. He said, ask Lars, what would you do if you were laying inside a house? What would you want the firefighters to do? And Lars came back and said, Ryan, I would want you to flow waters till I go surfing out the front door. Because if you apply enough water, you're not going to get to 212 degrees. You're not going to create quote unquote steam burns. That's a discussion for another day. So just keep in mind that, yes, the basement fires, specifically in hoarding conditions or heavy content conditions. Back to the sizing up part. When you folks walk around this place, if you start seeing that you've got overgrown shrubs, you've got clutter around the exterior of it, go look inside their vehicles. This is almost like a 99.9999% that the house is full of stuff. I call it the 380 degree size up. So we've arrived on scene. We've clarified that we've got clutter in the front. We've got overgrown shrubs. I'm going to go look inside their vehicles. And then my West Virginia joke is the one that has inflated tires and it's not on the roof. So just keep in mind it's the ones that hopefully they're driving. I call them the HTU, or the Hoarding Transportation Unit. And being the social media guy that I am, I love social media. Of course, I'm on a 90-day break for studying. I get pictures like this all the time. Hey, Ryan, thinking of you. Walking out of the Walmart last night, Ryan. Boy, I was thinking of you. Man, imagine what that guy's house looks like. And then, of course, when I was teaching in Indiana, right outside Indianapolis last year, they're like, man, we've got a captain on the job. Woo, you ought to see his car. The guy actually had that car. It was fantastic. Keep in mind that a car fire in heavy content conditions is going to be nasty. That's pretty much a given. And that sometimes they're subtle. This is a cue or clue. If you look at the front porch real close on this one, it's just a small cue or clue. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. The lady inherited this house when her mom died, and she turned it into a St. Bernard house. So there's no humans living in that house. But there's 6 St. Bernards. So, and it's also full of her mom's clutter. So it was pretty unique. It was a pretty filthy environment. Sometimes you might find someone that's hoarding appliance repair. This house was full of washing machines and refrigerators. I mean, it's just, these pictures come from all over the place. This one came from Jacksonville, Florida. This is like a hoarding compound. One of the biggest things about your size up is you want to establish the routes that the occupant uses for entry and exit. If you can see in one of these pictures right here, the occupant used just that one point of entry. 12 Jacksonville firefighters were in there when the collapse. They just left when the collapse happened. Remember, if they come out and tell you that no one's inside these houses, do you think there's going to be someone sneaking inside this house? The answer is no. I mean, these people, or the folks that suffer or are afflicted with this disorder, they can tell you every drop of stuff that's in their house. Hey, I want a wheelchair. The side, well, it's 3 stacks from the back on the right-hand side underneath the 4th pile. If they come out and say that there's nobody in there, these are environments that you just don't want to get into. We want to fight from the outside in. And that's the most important thing I want you guys to take away from the day, is fighting your way from the outside in. When I teach the full day session of this, I picked this up from the Dutch Fire Service. This is something that I believe in and I teach on a daily basis. Is that us Americans, we're pretty definitive. We're either offensive, aggressive, or defensive, protecting the neighbors. Well, the Dutch Fire Service actually uses quadrant model for decision making. Offensive interior, we all know what offensive interior is. A defensive interior is something like Aaron Fields teaches, or the guy who won the Heroism Award this year at FDIC. And what he got the Heroism Award was, he was on an engine crew. He crawled a hallway, drew a line in the sand, and said, listen, I'm going to hold this hallway while Engine 4 and the rescue go perform a rescue. He got burned. He held his position, and he was actually in a heavy content environment. So that would be a defensive interior. I'm going to show you an example of an offensive exterior here in a few minutes from Charlestown, West Virginia, a suburb of D.C. And then a defensive exterior is what we know about it. So this is a quick video. Not all West Virginians are hoarders, but I just so happen to be around them when they burn. No, I'm just kidding. This is another one from the Shepherdstown area. You can see the blue bins here. The reason I talk about this is the length of stretch. If they wouldn't have had a 400-foot pre-connected 1 3/4, they would not have even got close to the seat of the fire. So if you folks run long lines out there, you need to talk about whether you're going to run a 2.5 to 1 3/4, however you extend your hose line. If they would not have had a pre-connected 400-footer, they would have not even got anywhere near this house. The best thing about Shepherdstown, West Virginia, is they had a pre-fire plan. It wasn't a matter of if it caught on fire. It was a matter of when it caught on fire, because this is the second one he's burned. So if you guys go back to the maps and your overhead look, you can start pre-fire planning. Where's your engines go? Where's your trucks go? Because like I said, these things should not surprise you. I mean, you shouldn't turn the corner and be surprised by a heavy content fire. Quick example from LA City. LA City, this was an exterior fire that turned into a structure fire. So if it goes back to your on-scene assessment, we start noticing clutter. The front yard of this house is perfectly clear. This is an exterior fire that turns into a structure fire. And the reason I like this video here is it's got the biggest blue tarp I've ever seen. It's like 100 by 100 blue tarp. It's like a tent city back here. So like I said, this should not be a surprise to LA City. It should not be a surprise to my department or your department. Find the place where you want to start positioning your apparatus. You know there's a fence there. Go to operations. I mean, this is obviously a defensive fire first. If you start crawling the hallway of this house, you're not going to get very far. If there's no occupants in there, let it go. Bring in the bulldozer. And these are not macho fires. These are very complicated, low frequency, high risk environments, as Gordon Graham would say. If you guys choose to go inside one of these fires, you better have complete control. And I don't have 8 hours to explain this, but this is the same video, just a little bit further. And Dave, we told him, go ahead and open up the front door and let's see what happens. Of course, I was ducking underneath the table, and Joe's like, Ryan, nothing's going to happen. And you can see the fire begin to grow. You can see the neutral plane begin to lift. And what the theory here is we're going to take a window. We're going to do the UL NIST, bounce it off the ceiling, the slicer's acronym, whatever you want to call it. But before we do that, we're going to shut the front door back. So we close down the air track. So once again, we have complete control of the air. Here in a minute, you'll see them start introducing water. The water will show up on the bottom right. They use a 150 gallon per minute smoothbore nozzle or whatever nozzle they had. They bounce it off the ceiling. And you can see we're well over 1,200 at the ceiling. This is a non-survivable. But in order to make our stream more effective, they shut the front door. And now people are going to come back and say, well, Ryan, you're creating a bunch of steam. Yes, we are. And keep in mind, we're doing this under the occupancies or knowing that everybody's out. I'm almost ready to tell you to do this even if there's someone inside there, because of the mass of the belonging. It acts as a shield for the stuff. But you can see the water gets introduced. We get the room back under 300 degrees. The guys are going to come around to the front. We do hang the curtain. This is a commercial thing that we try, that I believe in. And then if you guys don't have a commercial curtain to handle, put somebody there for door control. If nothing else, shut the door. So here in a few minutes, you'll see the top right is completely blacked out. These guys are zero visibility with your eyes. But if you look at the thermal imaging camera on the left, they can really see it. If you look on the left-hand side, my captain Dave's getting ready to crawl down the hallway. He's getting ready to crawl the hallway at about 149 degrees. Like I said, that's a very low temperature. But if you look in here between the pathways, it's even lower than 150 degrees. It's like down to 110. But keep in mind, if you're completely blacked out because you're in a ventilation limited, or you're in a unidirectional flow path going away from you. Here in a few minutes, you'll see Captain Dave stick his noggin around the corner here. Here he is. He's only about 188 degrees at 48 inches. He's feeling no radiant heat because he's in the pathways. And then when he starts flowing his line, it completely kills the fire. There's just no fire. Keep in mind that before you guys go crawling into these heavy content conditions, we had 100 complete control of the air track. There was no open windows. There was no open doors. There was no open air available. He was fighting fire downstream. So he was jumping at the base of the dam and riding the flow down the water. Well, now, so what if you don't have control of the air? Well, on the last burn of the day, we let the air rip. We let 2 doors open. We took out 2 windows, and we just freaking let it get, excuse my French, piss ripping. We let it really get going. So what you're looking at here is on the Bravo side, on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a 3-person team flowing 150 gallons a minute. On the right-hand side, you'll see a 2-person crew flowing 30 gallons a minute. You guys want to take a guess who won this war? Chris, who won this war? Do you remember who won this war?
30 gallons a minute.
30 gallons a minute kicked the 150's butt. Why? Because they left the window in place. They didn't allow any air in. They pierced the side of the house and used 30 gallons per minute, and that was the last room to burn. Period, dot, check the gate, moving on. People are like, well, Ryan, you're creating steam. You're creating moisture. Yes, we are. Now, remember, I'm not ready to say do this on an occupied structure yet. I'm pretty doggone close, Chris. I'm pretty doggone close. I will take a steam burn patient all day long before I see someone go through radiant heat, 900 degree temperatures. I will take a 212 burn over a 900-degree burn every freaking day of the week. I'm not quite ready to publish that yet because I'll probably be kicked out of the fire service and stuck back on the ambulance before I know it. But the thing about it is, if you leave it ventilation limited and you use the expansion rate, and you ask people, well, what's the expansion steam rate of water? Well, it's 1,700 times. Well, 1,700 times is at 200 degrees. We asked the Boise guys just a little bit ago what the temperature of his last fire was, and he was saying at least 200. And what the problem is most of the fires we're seeing now, they're well in excess and well a lot higher than 212. I mean, they really are. So the vapor, the water that you're adding in there is not expanding 1,700 times, expanding 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 times. And it's creating that thermal balance. So now, how do we make this digestible for the American Fire Service? So everybody don't come to West Virginia and run right out of here with the spit. Well, here's how we do it. Number one, you determine occupancy. Life hazard is always, always, always first. Number two, you do your tactical thermal imaging camera. You find the seat of the fire. What's the hottest room? Where's the fire at? Where's the fire going? If you want to use a SLICERS acronym, I'm all about it. Find the air track. Close all the flow paths down. Now, how can we make it safer to enter? Well, here's the trick. Here's something I have found through the 40 case studies. Number one, identify the window. We know that is where the fire is at right now. First, don't leave the window in place. Stick your fog nozzle, smooth bore, water hose, dry chem. Don't care what you stick in it. Try to do it as high as you can, leaving the window in place. If you can't gain access to it, take the window, all right? You've just created a flow path. Now, for all you young folks, listen, stick a finger in your ear and hear me saying this. We don't do this with people inside the house. Let me put my ugly mug up here real quick. So I always tell everybody, stick your finger right here in the ear so don't run right through. We don't do this with people inside the house because we're creating air tracks, flow path. Look, the guy from Arizona is doing it. See, look. Yep, Arizona in the building. All right, so we're not doing this. This is coordinated. Even John Norman tells you we coordinate ventilation, always coordinate ventilation. So now we're assuming this is an unoccupied dumpster, basically. All right, so we're going to find the seat of the fire. We're going to take the window. Now, how can we make that more accessible to firefighters? How can we make that a safer environment for our folks to either A, extinguish, or B, enter? Well, the key is to grab your chainsaw. So we're going to take this window, grab your saw, 2 cuts and a Halligan, and now look what you've gotten. A couple things can happen here. Uh-oh, somebody getting a run. Is it a fire? I don't know who's getting dispatched, but must not be a fire. Nobody's running out real quick. So what have you done here, guys? Number one, you're able to do a structural inspection. Number two, you can knock the fire down. Or 3, if you got to go inside a house, go inside a 3 feet inside of a house instead of 20 feet down a hallway. This freaking works. Where's our Boise guys at, Rob? This is one of your Boise guys here. I don't remember his name, and I can't tell it. But I set these guys up. The main thing about taking these windows is we had a little, I called it a pruning saw, not a very good fire service saw, but I set these guys up. If you guys can notice here in the window, we had a bunch of medical school books. So they were like this thick, and I stacked them on top of each other. So that way when they buried their blade into the window, it jammed their blade up. I did that on purpose. I had to apologize afterwards. But the principle is if you guys go to take these windows with this much junk in there, you can't bury your blade all the way in there because it's going to stall your saw. It's going to jam it all up. And, of course, he gets his saw jammed up because I set him up. And I'm going to drop this window seal. I'm going to take that hook and start pulling that stuff out. We didn't pull the stuff out here because our intended purpose was to burn the house down. We burned it down in like 33 minutes. I've never seen 60,000 cubic feet of material be completely gone in 33 minutes. It was pretty fantastic. Chris, can you speak to the radiant heat that thing put off? Was just phenomenal. It was like melting our eyeballs. So this is something we want to do room by room in a systematic approach, starting with the hottest, working our way down to the coldest. You're not going to be able to put this house out from the outside. You're either, number one, A, going to have to get in it and start overhauling it. Number two, saturate it so full of water that you're going to you'll never come back. Or B, you're going to have to bring the excavator in and just tear the whole freaking thing down. you're not going to be able to extinguish this fire completely from the outside. There's just no way, because the fire can be so deep seated and so much smoldering material in there. You're going to have to overhaul that room. So the safe way of doing it is going through the window here. I'm going to go ahead and speed it up because we're running out of town a little bit, but they do it on the second window back here. You can see the velocity and the stuff. We're burning the house down at this point, but we wanted to show taking the window sills out. Just keep in mind that you're allowing air inside it, and you want to compensate for it. They compensate by flowing water here. They end up taking the seals out and hooking that stuff right out. I don't know which Boise, I don't remember his name. Can you guys see his name there? C. Tiffany? Does that sound right? Is that one of your guys, Rob?
Yeah, it's Chad.
Yeah, Chad Tiffany and Mike Zolan.
Man, those guys were studs. I mean, they were absolute studs. They did fantastic. I had to go apologize after and say, hey, guys, by the way, I set you up with your saw.
Don't worry. We'll bust his balls for it later.
Yeah, no, those were the guys doing the vent inner search that I was showing you at the beginning. Those guys were really great. I really enjoyed them. There was a lot of good guys down here. So that's what we want to do. People ask me, so Ryan, what's the best way to search inside these environments? Number one, we want to control the airflow. You want to be working in a downstream airstream. You want to be working in what's called a unidirectional flow path. But we also want to have three layers for searching. We want to have a search rope. I highly recommend a high heat rated search rope. We definitely want to take our thermal imaging camera, and we want to stay oriented as much as possible. We want to practice in heavy content environments. We want to stay in the pathways they create. So, and when I teach in the classroom setting, I always ask them, somebody in the back of the room, if you want to go from the back of the room to the front of the room, you crawl over the chairs to get to the front. The answer is, of course, no. And that's these folks who live like this. They use the pathways to get in and out. When you're searching, you want to get in those pathways. So I like using like the Ritz style setup. So you got a navigation firefighter, and hopefully you have two searching firefighters. If you only have one, the navigation is going to have a search rope, thermal imaging camera, set of irons with you. We're going to stay in the pathways. Out of the 42 case studies, it was like 86% was found either by the front door or in the pathway, wherever. We want to not upset that material around them. You don't want to push it over. Stay in the pathways. Number one, you're going to be shielded from the heat, so to speak. At the same time, you also want to pay attention with your thermal imaging camera and watching the overhead temperatures. So keep that in mind. If your search rope, it needs to be a high heat rated search rope. It's something we did in my department almost 3 years ago. As we used to have the good old John. I always wonder where it came from. It came from old Chief Norman. He said a bleach bottle and nylon rope makes a search rope. Well, those things are long gone now, thank God. As we use high heat rated Kevlar rope, it's rated to 900 degrees. And that way, if you pull your rope over some smoldering debris, it will not burn through. So a combination of a search rope, thermal imaging camera. We always recommend to play the rope out. Don't pull it tight, so that way you're not knocking over the stuff. Real quick here, I want to show a case study here from Charlestown, West Virginia. Charlestown was out on the air. They're a combination department, and this is the house they respond to. They were about 2 miles away when the fire came in with triple entrapment. So this house came in with 3 people entrapped. They arrived on the scene, and they found these conditions. That was conditions on arrival after the first water application. Couple learning points from Shepherdstown is number one, they did some rescues off the backside. They pulled 2 people from that porch, and they were still unaccounted for a third person. You guys can see this is pretty obvious. If you guys don't see balloon frame construction very often, this is a balloon frame house. The chief said that played right into their decision to keep operating as long as they did. Just like many firefighters, they always go searching. They assumed that the third victim was the same place as the first 2. Come to find out, she was wheelchair bound. She was missing part of one of her legs. And after they did the removal from the front, I got a chance to do an interview. And you guys can go over to Jump Seat Radio and listen to this interview. It's pretty remarkable. The lieutenant that did the search in these conditions. And I asked him, I'm like, ALT, number one, you got cojones the size of Mars, because that is not a livable space. He said, Ryan, the thing about it is when I got off the junk and down into the pathways in between the stuff, he said there was zero doubt in my mind that somebody could not be living down there. He said, we took the window, the fire came to us, we took a hose line, we kept the fire off of us. He did the VES in these conditions under the protection of a water stream. I mean, I'm telling you what, that is above and beyond in my mind. They gave him a medal. The guy deserves it. His brand new freaking leather Phoenix helmet is no longer with us anymore. His gear was scorched. He was not burned. And he not only did he do it one time, he did it on both these, on 2 rooms. So there was 2 rooms that he searched. And my first question to him was, LT, how do you stay oriented? He said, Ryan, I knew that if I stayed on that big king-size bed that I would know my way back to the window. So he knew that he could not isolate the room to search. So he flowed water with his jump seat firefighter, flowed water the whole time. He got in, got the search, got it done. Well, hindsight being 2020, there was 2 people when they rolled up told him that she wasn't upstairs, she was downstairs. And this is where they found her. She was in this wheelchair. She was going for the window. She went for the window, and the clutter fell on top of her, actually insulating her from the fire. I talked to Chief Harton about this one. Chief Harton was like, Ryan, she had 2 things going for her. Number one, the clutter insulated her from the fire, but she was also by a fresh air source, so she didn't catch as much toxins. One of the most remarkable things about this, and I'm going to let this video play here for a few minutes, is this is live video. That's the LT after he just came out. He's pretty fried at this point. That ladder, as they got out, as the last person got up onto the ladder, it actually slid down on an extension cord. So it slid down an extension cord. Right now, that ladder is an energized ladder. I mean, now you California guys might not have this problem with your wooden ladders and everything, but they actually can't get down because it's energized because they slid down on a power cord. They were stealing power from the neighbor's house. So just because you pull the power meter, don't automatically assume that these places don't have power to it. So at this point, the incident commander is going up saying, hey guys, we switched from a rescue to a recovery. And as soon as he lets go of the microphone, the good old LT just so happens to come over here, and he stuck his head in this window and heard her moaning. Well, come to find out, she was downstairs in the fire room. So this is downstairs on the Delta Alpha corner. She was in the room of origin, and they had been flowing water over top of her for, I don't know, almost 31 minutes at that point. Where's the 815 area code at? Illinois. Don't know Illinois. So the funny thing about this thing is she had 0 steam burns. That lady survived the fire. She was burned 80% of her body, but she had zero steam burns. They'd been flowing water over top of her for 31 minutes before discovery. The big learning points for Shepherdstown is you need to do a proper on-scene assessment of where the location of the victim was, and don't give up. Those guys didn't find her till 31 minutes into the fire, the first alarm assignment. At the end of the 31 minutes, they loaded her on the ambulance, and 4 of his guys just went, done. So he had to have 4 of them transported for exhaustion. Just kind of a follow-up, guys. This is a wrap-up, guys. Number one, thanks for giving me an hour of your time. This is about this much, and I hate to give a bad joke here, but this is this much of the hoarding amount of information I have for this topic. If you don't have control of the air, don't go in it, period. I mean, I'm almost ready to say that, Chris, with every fire you go into. If you can't control the air, either flow water on your way in or just leave it. I'm completely 100%. If you can't control the air track in a fire, you're not in control. Either start flowing water, find another way in, and cool it. If you find these heavy contents in your area, start making a pre-fire plan. It's not a matter of if they catch on fire. It's a matter of when they catch on fire. And then if you have to do a rescue, take a search rope, a thermal imaging camera, your set of tools with you. Try to find the point of entry the closest possible. Chief Norman even talks about why crawl all the way through a house when you can go through a vent enter search. If you do a vent enter search, you need to automatically assume that you cannot close that interior door. Take a hose line in with you, hang your curtain up, put the dry chem in it, do something. Because when you take that window, that fire's over here is going to come to where you're at, and you may have just made things a whole lot worse. One point that I missed earlier, if you're crawling in the pathways, make sure to always scan with that thermal imaging camera, because that stuff shields you from the heat. And that's one of the biggest takeaways we took away from the Buffalo Fire Department and a couple other folks we've talked to is the shielding effects of the Hoard. All right, Chris, wait. I can do this properly. My mic dropped. You guys go ahead and turn your microphones on or turn your things on. Let's hear some questions, comments, concerns, moans, gropes, complaints, bitches. Like I said, this is about an hour's worth of 8-hour session. So let me know what you think.
That's all good information, and I'm glad you brought up some of that KTF stuff because it was awesome. And like I said, we did the fog nail and the dry chem with LA County up in their upstairs Connex boxes, and it worked fantastic. I should have some helmet cam video of that. Mine was outside, and my buddy wore his inside. So as soon as we get that, I'll give it to you guys, of course. And the door control is huge. I can't say it enough. And for those of you who haven't experienced it, and like our department is just starting to implement it, we're really starting to do the transitional attack stuff. But we left out the component of door control, and those curtains are awesome. I know, Boise, have you started using those yet? I know we left you a couple when we were teaching out there.
You know, I don't know what they've had for use. I know that Mike ended up putting one on engine one, and I know that we discussed some. We had the ATF guy out last week.
Nice.
Discussing modern fire behavior.
They really know fire behavior.
It was St.
Adam
Paul
St. John.
Yeah, man, holy cow. And at first I thought, well, you know, we'll see what kind of experience he's got being a full-time ATF guy, a volunteer. And holy cow, man, that guy's on it.
He's got the video series out. If you guys haven't seen it, it's 3 videos. They're each about an hour long. You can pick them up on YouTube, and they are outstanding. Start with one, watch them through like one a set. They are fantastic.
Okay.
Is that like the Mark Falkenham one?
Yep, the Mark Falkenham flow path. And he gets into a lot of different case studies, San Francisco, Cherry Lane, a bunch of little other ones, Prince George's County. I think there's one in there. And he's on top of it. In fact, when we implemented Modern Fire here, that's the video series we use for tactics, trying to discuss some, flow paths type of stuff. So door controls are next step. I just did a presentation, and I think I finished it up. So Dave, I'm actually going to send it to you to review for me, and you can pick it apart. So
all right,
what you think.
Here you go, Chris. You asked for it. This is Ryan's version of teaching door controls. We created let's just say that we created an interesting flow path. We got the gases ignited, and we've got an under pressure, over pressure side, and we actually had the fire licking around a 45-degree angle. So this is a little bit longer video we showed you, and we actually had the fire shooting down the hallway. So we want to give the rookies the real live experience. We created an under pressure side, and we lit the gases off with some OSB hanging from the ceiling. So here in a minute, you're going to see us when we shut the door, shut all the doors up in the container. The fire will go back right into the room that it was originated in. And this is the long version of the video you saw. And of course, this is our instructors going, how in the hell did you do this? And I'm like, hey, it's science, man. It's science. So the guy comes in. They'll come back behind us. They're looking at the gases lighting off. We've got good gas light off. Ceiling temperatures, 6, 7, 800 degrees. Floor temperatures, 110. But here in a minute, we're getting ready. We've got another good flow. We got 2 flow paths going here. It's really struggling for it. But when they shut the door behind us, it goes right back into the container. And that's what door control, right, there it goes. Well, here in a minute. There it goes, right back in the container. It's just that simple.
Hey, Ryan, can I get this from you by chance? I have your short version one. I was going to ask you if I could use for that, but that's a fantastic, that's a better video of it.
I'm telling you, I want to be an arsonist.
I'd love to get it from you.
Yeah, I'll get it out to you, Chris. I got to edit it out and make sure that, I mean, it was filmed on my department time, so I got to make sure all the names and stuff is wiped out. I think we got a new training chief. He's all about sharing, and I've got some other ones. So I laid down the container and did the Lars thing and watch it blow over me. So it's cool. We're good.
Hey, Ryan, can we see that vent ABC isolate search again?
Oh, yeah. So you folks who hadn't seen that yet, this was a vent enter search procedure done with a dry chemical extinguisher. And my first thing was like, what in the hell are we doing with a dry chemical extinguisher in a working structure fire? So this is what the Swedish fire service will do a lot of times. So this is another quadrant view. Of course, the bottom left is the alpha side. Top right is from alpha to Bravo into the room of origin. I think we put, 4 mattresses, 2 lazy boys in there. I don't know. The fuel package was huge. Excuse me. The bottom right is an optical on the delta side. The top left is a thermal on the delta side. So the theory or the research project we're here is we want to do a vent enter search without the ability to isolate the room. So we want to automatically assume that we can't get in that window and shut that room off from the flow of the air, flow of the heat. So we hang the commercial curtain up on the window before they take the window. And before they do that, they introduce a dry chemical extinguisher. Once again, I got to throw this out there. We had complete control of the air track. We knew where the air was coming from. We knew where the air was going. We knew that there wasn't going to be no air because Joe pretty much told us, if you can't control the air, you don't go in it. And that's pretty much true for any fires, really. So you'll see we've got it up to 500, 600 degrees. It does go down into the decay phase pretty quickly because there's not a whole lot of air in there. So the scenario was the officer is going to do their tactical 360. Here's his tactical 360. He comes up, he finds the room of origin. We're going to say, hey, listen, Mamaw, Papaw, Mom, Dog, whomever is in that room, we want you to go get them. So they come up, and they're going to come up, and Big Mike is the lieutenant here. They're going to hang the commercial curtain over the entry point. And this way you make a smoke blockade. You don't let the air, you keep the cold air from going in, and you also keep the hot gases from coming out. And now some people say, well, Ryan, you're not going to get no lift in the room. And that's exactly right. We don't want lift. We don't want fire growth. We don't want a horizontal fire spread because there's an occupant in that room, or at least we're simulating an occupant in that room. So they hang up the smoke blockade. Big Mike takes his well spear there. I don't know if you guys buy those or not, but I had a long talk about my chief. We don't buy well spears anymore. We want hooks. So he takes the well spear here, and he takes out the window. As you can see on the top right, the fire is already in the decay stage. It's going to stay in the decay stage because there has no airflow available to it. And once Big Mike takes out the window, we're going to dump a 10-pound dry chemical extinguisher in there. And it was just amazing how it works. I mean, you put that dry chemical extinguisher in there, you can take a blowtorch to that stuff. It's not going to light because it binds to the material and inhibits the burning process. So if you watch real close on the top right screen, when he dumps the dry chem in there, you can see the cloud of dry chem come in. The one thing that we really couldn't justify or quantify, it was the oxygen concentration in the room. I will tell you that I did this maneuver the other day on one of my friend's house, and the guinea pig that was living in the room of origin survived the dry chem. I thought I thought I was going to kill the guinea pig by dumping the dry chem in the window like this, but the guinea pig lived. The insurance agent actually asked me, Ryan, how would you all put this fire out with no water damage? There was no water damage. I told him it was a science experiment, and it worked. So you'll see the dry chem expands. It does not cool the environment. It does not get any cooler. It just means that there's not going to be any fire yet. So what's the big bald head guy named from Boise? That's the guy that jumps in the window here. He goes in. He comes out. He is covered from head to toe in dry chem. And he said visibility was zero, no visibility whatsoever. But at the same time, that there's just no way that place is going to catch on fire. There's no way the fire is coming to that room. It's got so much what they call ballast, ballast, in that room, and you're on the overpressure side. So basically, you're on the dam side of the river. The river can't go back up into the dam. Why? Because it's flowing the wrong way. And so you're on the dam side of this river. And that's the way we should fight fire every time. You should be fighting fire downstream. If you're not fighting fire downstream, find another stream, cool it, do something. It's just the way we are. The key word of today is flow path. The fire chief of Parkersburg, West Virginia in the 1940s, Lloyd Lehman knew about this back in the 40s. So why do we not know about it nowadays? I just think we've gotten to the point. I had this discussion with Joe. I think the paradigm shift is shifted. So back in the day, fires were here, PPE was here. Now all of a sudden our PPE got to here. Now all of a sudden the fires are back to here again. So we need to kind of go back to the old school way of thinking, back when Chief Lehman talked about air track, steam conversion, and some other stuff that all of us should have been learning the whole freaking time anyway. So any questions, guys? Thank you all for letting me give me the gift of your time to this afternoon.
Thanks, man. That was good.
Thank you. That's about this much stuff.
Thanks, Ryan.
Guys, anybody? Jeremiah, Jason, John? Who else we got? Van, Tanner?
Oh, man. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Oh, hey, man.
Have
Going
you
back
guys all seen the video from Sweden? I know a lot of my guys have.
What's that?
The video from Sweden that Lars puts out, I know you have,
Right.
Ryan, where they did the dry chem attack. Have you guys seen that one? Rob, I think we played that there. Let me see if I can go to screen share here and see if I can share it with you. I got it up.
Man, it works fantastic.
So let's see. Dry chem attack. What are you guys seeing right now?
Yeah, we got it.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's.
All
Hey,
right.
how much time is it taking you, Chris, with the training to get that fire curtain in place? You know what I'm saying, for windows?
Seconds.
You know, they're really simple.
How is it attached? How is it attached?
It's like a
Push and
curtain
twist.
rod that twists, it ratchets and twists.
Yeah.
Man, if you're a mouse, it takes nothing.
Nothing.
But
Remember-
this is the video that our friend Lars plays. He's from Sweden. So you've got quite the or a bidirectional flow path that turns into about 100% outlet. You can kind of still see it breathing there. So he'll just walk up with our typical ABC dry chem. You know, the only thing that's burning there is gases. The heat is still there, as you can see on the other side, but it's not going to ignite right away. We basically took – got music. I got to take some scientific shortcuts because I'm not that smart. But basically, like Ryan was saying, if the smoke is incomplete combustion, it's kind of like sawdust. And if we take a match to sawdust, it's going to ignite. But if we add thermal ballast, if we add that mass to it, we turn that smoke, that gas, into a log. So it takes a significant amount more heat source for that to ignite. So you can see that on the thermal imager side down in the corner that the heat doesn't go away necessarily, but there's no flame. So to stop that horizontal spread, it definitely helps. So.
Keep in mind that's Celsius. That's not Fahrenheit. So that's like 3 times or 2.5 times hotter than what we would think it was. That's Celsius.
Right.
So it's just that mass. So now, I mean, would you rather crawl the hallway at 105 C or 600 C? I mean, it just makes sense.
So
listen, I love long mustache and wearing cows on my head too. But I mean, the thing about it is I'd like to come home to my little girl with my cow still on my head.
So, thank you, buddy. I appreciate your time, man. And like I said, I will upload this for you guys that we're on. You can share it if that's okay with you, Ryan. And
that's fine with me, guys. Man, I tell you, my days of traveling have come into a screeching halt. Airplanes and last year was 52 classes in 28 locations, 2 countries, and 70,000 frequent flyer miles. My wife said, "You're done."
I thought I was busy. Holy cow.
Well, I got to get back busy now. I'm going into the pit of promotion.
All right. Well, good luck with that, sir.
Thanks,
And,
guys.
we'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you.
Let me know if I can help
Thanks,
you guys.
man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Stay safe.
All right, guys. Thank you for attending all this. It's awesome. I love to have a bunch of people on. I think we had 15 at some point, so I even had to run out for a call, so I have to pick some of that up. But I appreciate it. Hope it was good information. Next month, I'm hoping to either get Ed Harton and talk to us a little bit about gas cooling, or John Dixon and talk to us a little about leadership and drift. So one of those two are going to happen in the near future, and then we'll keep going from there. So, and then Dave, I'll touch base with you in a little bit here, sir, and we'll plan out our next event. So, all right. Anybody got anything for me? I'm going to hit end the meeting here.
Keep them coming, man.
Cool. See you, Mikey.
Better.
Thanks, dude.